Hi everyone, it's Dr. Olinger at Cadence Natural Health. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and today I want to talk to you about masks, how to wear them, how to take care of them, which mask type might be best for you. So hopefully there's some good information in there for everyone. I've been seeing a lot of kind of mask misfits and misuse out there in my own journey, so I thought I'd put this out there as kind of general good information, and hopefully it's helpful for you. I am going to talk a little bit about things to think about with each mask, but the overall kind of takeaway is that you want something that covers your face well, doesn't have any gaps, or minimizes the amount of gaps, like on the side or from the nose or underneath the chin. And you want to make sure that you have good particle blockage, so that these viruses and bacteria that we're hopefully don't want coming into our nose and our mouth, as hopefully the fabric that we choose or the mask that we choose is going to be effective at blocking those particles. And that comes down to the fabric type, but also there's things like static electricity on some masks that kind of adds additional protection, which is really neat. So some things to think about there. And then the biggest takeaway I would have for you is anything is better than nothing. I don't want this video to make anyone anxious, like, oh, you have the wrong mask. Any mask is better than no mask at all. Even a scarf, if I was caught off guard and didn't have anything with me, this would still block a good almost majority of particles coming through to my nose and mouth. So, I don't want anyone to be overly stressed out about this, but just, this is all good information for maybe picking a mask in the future that fits you well or fits your needs a little bit better. And just know that anything is really better than nothing. We're still stopping the transmission of particles through to our nose and mouth, and hopefully into our eyes as well. So hopefully this is all helpful for you. Hopefully it doesn't cause too much anxiety, but hopefully it does guide kind of your choice in masks that you have already, or if you're looking to buy a mask, this might help you pick a good type for you. So let's get into the kind of masks that are available. I'm going to start with the fabric mask, which is really the most commonly, easily available mask. A lot of us have these, and I love that so many companies are making these now, so they're really kind of the most widely available type. So I have this example here. It's a fabric mask, and you'll notice I'm picking everything up with the loopholes because that's how you want to handle your masks. And, a cloth mask, still one sheet of cloth. You can think of it as a fence where it has gaps, in the fabric. If you think of like a cotton fabric, those gaps are pretty large and still let a good amount of aerosol particles with viral particles to pass through. So it's really important with cloth to have layers, because each time we have a new layer of cloth, there's overlap of those gaps in the fabric, and those gaps get smaller and smaller. So I would aim for, any more than one layer is going to be great, but 3 would be even better. So with this mask, I think there's a layer on the outside, there's a layer of fabric on the inside, and then there's going to be a layer of fabric in between as well. So that's great. 3 layers of fabric, I'm going to get pretty good protection with this. On the order, when we use our masks appropriately, you can get 50 to 80% blockage of respiratory particles, which is great. So not a bad option. One thing to note here is making sure that it has a really nice wide fit over the face, and that sometimes something to help with this would be a nose bridge, so having a piece of metal or reinforcement around the nose, just so it kind of clamps down around the nose a little bit better, and that way you don't have breath coming up along the nose into the eyes. So I'm going to put this on, and I'll just point out kind of the fit around the ears. And I really like this one because it goes wide up to the ears. There isn't a lot of space here. It's right flush against my skin. The nose, there's a little bit here, but it goes all the way down to below my chin. Unfortunately, this mask doesn't have a nose bridge, so it's not ideal, but it's still a great mask for kind of, I use this when I'm going grocery shopping on occasion, or I'm kind of wandering around the neighborhood and I want to have something to put on if someone comes along my way and I don't have anything on. So this is kind of a good kind of day-to-day. The second mask I have here is kind of your standard medical paper mask. These, I'm gonna open it up because it's a little easier to see. These are pretty common, and I actually use this in the office when I'm seeing most of my patients. I would say I use this with my asymptomatic patients because there's less likelihood of transmissibility, and it's a little more comfortable to wear on the regular. So I would encourage people to look for these if you're needing a mask on the day-to-day, you're going into work, you are around people, but maybe not a lot of people. This can be a great option. Also a great option if you're going grocery shopping too. There's, I would encourage a mask like this, it's a good option. Anyway, this one blocks about 80% of particles. So, plus or minus about 10%, because these studies really aren't that precise. So you could say 70 to 90% of particles blocked with a mask like this. And what I like about it is it's breathable, but it does have that nose bridge reinforcement. And it's kind of easy to use. So put it on, and you want to make sure again that you pull it down below the chin and up on the nose. The one thing I don't like about this mask is that it does tend to ride up too high and can sometimes touch the eyes. And this is something you don't want with any mask, because once you have this fabric touching your eye, that's where there's a chance for particles to go into the eyes. So frequently with this mask, I'm pulling it down, way down, and just really pinching the nose, making sure it's secure there. This is about where you want it, midway on the nose. You want it high enough on the nose so that it's not slipping down, and you want it not too high so it doesn't touch the eyes. When I take this one off, I pull the sides and I make sure to fold it with the dirty side onto itself. The dirty side is the front side that's exposed to everyone, and that's a really good way to store it if you're going to be reusing these. And we want to make sure that we're not confusing the front side with the side that faces us. So making sure that we close the dirty side, the side that's front facing to itself, makes sure that this is always clean when we store it, and I'll go into that a little bit later. Third mask, last but not least, is an N95. I have an example here. This one I will use with patients who are symptomatic. So this one has a really good fit. It has a metal nose bridge reinforcement, so it's even better, snugger around the nose. And I'll notice, when I have this on, there is no gap in air, like no air gaps anywhere around this mask. It is snug, and when I breathe through this, I'm literally only breathing my own air. Versus with the cloth or with the paper mask, there's a little bit of air leaving the mask on either side or through the chin or the nose. So with this one, it's a little more interesting to put on. Other N95 masks also just have ear loops. They're different models, but if an N95 is on there, it should be an N95 mask. And an N95 means it blocks 95% of particles, which is great. The reason it's able to be so high is two reasons. One is it's made of a plastic kind of polypropylene material that actually is sticky. So it sticks to the aerosol, viral, bacterial particles as they're kind of passing through the mask. And it also has some static electricity on the surface of the mask, which actually repels certain particles from the surface of the mask itself, which is great. So you get like double the protection as well as a triple layer of protection with the fact that you just have a fabric covering as well. So if I put this one on here, again over, and this one's already fit to my face, but I know there are no gaps on either side, and again, it's below the chin. It's really snug. There's also a mask like a respirator mask that you might have seen. They're more the half face or the full face, pretty apocalyptic looking masks. And these are great. When they're used well, they are very effective. That being said, they're often not used well. Two things I would say if someone's using one of those is make sure to replace the filters of those masks. Those are like the two devices you might see on the front, and those need to be replaced just as often as you would replace one of these masks. And it should be an N95 filter as well. It's going to filter as effective as one of these. The other thing to make sure with one of those masks is that it fits right. If you're spending all the money on that mask, you want to make sure it fits your face well, otherwise you may as well be using one of these fabric masks. And that can be something that you can see a provider for. I will do masks fits on occasion, and it's just having someone else double check and make sure that it really is sealed on all contacts on the face, and there's no hair being blocked in on the seal, things like that. So I want to talk quickly about how to put on and off your mask and how to store your mask. So I keep my mask in a plastic bag. Happens to be a biohazard bag, but it works. Any other plastic bag would work just as fine. A paper bag will also work fine. So I have like a little lunch baggie here for my cloth mask. It's important not to just put your mask in your purse or in your bag. You want to have like a separate bag for your mask, and that's your only bag for the mask, because otherwise it's just kind of, you're putting the mask in your pocket or in your bag, and it's getting exposed to whatever is in your bag or your pocket, and vice versa. What's in your bag is getting exposed to whatever was on your mask, and it's just it's not helpful anymore in that case. So here's my Ziploc baggie with my mask in it. So when I'm ready to use it, I take it out of the mask by grabbing the loopholes. Grab the other loophole. And I'm remembering that the clean side, the side that's going to go towards my face, is the outside of this mask. So I want to open it up, put it on, pinch it down, make sure it's not touching my eyes. Good to go. When I take it off, go like this, pull it out, pinch it together again so that dirty side is touching itself and nothing else, and the clean side is on the outside. And I put it in the bag like so. So another reason we have the clean side facing out is because now we know the bag is clean, right? And we want to keep the bag clean. So by having the clean side of the mask touching the bag, we can reuse the bag a little bit better. Last thing, after putting on your mask or taking off your mask, you want to wash your hands, because even as much as we use the ear holes, we're still touching the mask a little bit when pulling it, and so just a good idea, wash your hands or hand sanitizer. The other thing with the cloth mask is, some of them, and this also goes for some of the N95s that are really fitted, they're shaped in a way that makes it really hard to fold the dirty side in on itself. With this one thing you can do is fold the dirty side in on itself like this and put it into your bag. In this case, I use a paper bag for my cloth mask. That's one way to do it. And then when it comes to this N95, there's really not a great way to store it because it's so shaped. So when I do store it in a bag, I try to make sure that I mark the dirty side of the bag, but even then, it's not perfect. So this one has to be cleaned a little bit more. I'm going to talk about cleaning next. So ideally, a lot of these masks are single use. The fabric one, not so much, but we don't want to be reusing these because there's always that risk of cross-contamination. In this day and age, we're trying to really be effective about the amount of masks that are available, so I think it is pertinent to reuse our masks, especially the cloth masks, in a way that allows us to keep having access to some kind of protection. So how often you clean your mask is going to come down to how often you're using it and how you're storing it. So if you're using a mask every day, you're going to work, you're around a lot of people, it's probably a good idea to wash that mask every day or to have a new mask that you use every day. So you could have 5 masks that you use Monday through Friday, and then you wash them all over the weekend. That's a good option. With something like this, I'm using this maybe for a couple days, and then I go ahead and use a new one, or I clean it. That's an option as well. And then for this one, I'm cleaning it every time I use it or every 2 times I use it, but I try to clean it every time. That'd be best. So cleaning it, there are a few ways to do it, and I think the easiest way to do it at home is to put it in your oven. And you want to put it in a dry oven for 30 minutes at 200 Fahrenheit. You don't want to go above 250 Fahrenheit. Higher than that, you actually kind of degrade the material, especially if you're using it for an N95. You degrade the material a little bit, and it's no longer effective. It doesn't have that stickiness to it. It doesn't have that staticness to it if you're talking about an N95. So, 150 to 200 Fahrenheit is enough. Stick it in the oven 30 minutes, and it's good to go from there. If you're using an N95, an additional option is sometimes that static factor kind of goes away when you're cooking it in the oven. And one thing you can do to kind of restore that static property of the mask is to take a non-static hair dryer and dry the mask for about 10 minutes. And that will restore the static property of the mask a little bit. So that's helpful. And there's been good research that the quality of the mask actually is pretty resilient when you heat it and hair dry it for 20 to 30 cycles of cleaning. So you could use one of these for a good month and still have it be a very effective N95. What you don't want to do, you don't want to be putting it at too high of heat, and you don't want to use a static hair dryer, so because then you're reducing the effectiveness of at least an N95 down to about 80%, which is still very effective, but if we can keep it at 95, that's great because it blocks 95% of particles, super effective. It's the ideal situation. If you're using a cloth mask, you can wash it on high heat in your wash machine. Put it in the delicates bag because you don't want the loops to get worn out too much. But high heat wash cycle should do it for a cloth mask. And for the medical grade paper mask, this one's probably more disposable. You could put it in the oven, but after about a couple days of use, I'm probably just grabbing a new one. So that's that. If you have any questions about what I talked about in this video today, feel free to post in the comments, or you can contact me at dr.olinger@cadenceND.com. You can find also the email on my website, cadenceND.com. And go ahead and post in the comments if you have any resources. I'd love to share local resources for where to find a good quality mask, whether that's an N95 or a cloth mask, where you find a really good maker who's making it with lots of layers, maybe with that nose bridge. Those are all great resources, especially if they're local. I'd love to support that. So go ahead and post that in the comments, and I'll post my own kind of references in the comments as well as we go. And hopefully that's been helpful for you. Thanks. Take care.